Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. We're on location and this is On the Road.
We've talked about lots of different ways to enjoy bourbon, and while that may be normally something that's neat or on the rocks, we're going to explore some ways that bourbon's versatility allows it to be used as something to mix things with. So we're going to look at some cocktails today. We're at Southside Smokehouse in Landrum, South Carolina, and we're going to take a look at several different cocktails that are great ways to enjoy bourbon. We are fortunate enough to be invited by Robert, the general manager of Southside Smokehouse, and he's also an expert bartender. And he's going to share with us some of his ideas about cocktails and things like that. But first of all, let's find out a little bit more about this establishment here in Landrum.
So we have been here 19 years this past December. My father-in-law originally opened the restaurants. And 19 years later, my wife, Sarah, and I are managing and running it day to day. I am the general manager, also run the bar program, which is what we're going to be focusing on today. And yeah, just hoping I can inspire some people with some good cocktails today.
Absolutely. I'm pretty excited about that.
Absolutely. That sounds great, Robert. So tell us a little bit about, you mentioned you and your wife. Tell us a little bit about you and Sarah.
Yeah, we waited tables here right out of high school. We were 17 and 18. I'm now 37 and she's 36. We left and she went to graduate school at UGA.
Go Dogs.
Yeah, swore she would never be in food service again. Hated the large school atmosphere at UGA and started working under a chef in Athens.
Okay. And
fell back in love with food, and long story short, we came back home and now we're doing our thing here today, doing the best we can.
Now Sarah's got a little notoriety on TV,
does.
so tell the folks watching a little bit about Sarah.
Yes, she was a chef ambassador for the state of South Carolina. We do a lot of food wine festivals related to that, working on behalf of the state. We focus on a lot of local products, local farmers, and do everything from scratch. She's been in several magazines, Food Network, a lot of local shows, a couple of cookbooks.
That's great.
Well, tell us a little bit about what you're going to be making for us today.
Well, we're going to start with the classics that everyone should hopefully know, the Old Fashioned and the Manhattan, and then maybe do a couple of riffs on those and maybe venture out into some other liqueurs and things added in to do some twists.
Fantastic.
That's great.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it.
Absolutely.
Let's go pour some bourbon.
All right, guys, we said we're making cocktails today. Robert, tell us what you're going to make for us first.
Talking bourbon cocktails, I think the Old Fashioned should go first. It's the quintessential bourbon cocktail. It's very spirit forward. Still leaves a lot to taste with the bourbon itself, with only a few other things to highlight the qualities of the bourbon.
That's great. I've never had an Old Fashioned before. So for me, this is the first time, and I'm looking forward to this. You know, guys, I told you before, I got into bourbon a couple years ago, but I was drinking wine and stuff before that. And so I've never had one of these, and let's get rolling.
So let's do it.
All right, so tell us kind of what you're making and how you're doing it.
So we start out with bourbon. You can use about anything. I really like Larceny. It's a reasonably priced bourbon, and it highlights well in the cocktail itself.
So how much do you put in there?
So we do about 1.5 ounces of Larceny. And a caveat, everyone makes Old Fashions different. I think mine's the best. I'm sure someone else thinks theirs is the best.
After today, I'll know yours is the best because it's the first one I've had.
You're always going to use Angostura bitters. That's kind of a touchstone for Old Fashions. I do 3 dashes of Angostura.
And ingredients do matter, don't they?
They do. And then I also do 3 dashes of orange bitters, which some people don't use, but I think it really brings out the citrus flavor that you want in an Old Fashioned. And next we add simple syrup. Some people like a little more or a little less. I prefer about 1/2 ounce. Okay. And then the cherry, and that's kind of important for me. Most everyone knows maraschino cherries. I think that adds way too much sugar.
Okay.
I prefer a nice liqueur soaked cherry.
Oh, sweet.
I use Filthy brand. Some people like Luxardos. I don't like the sugar or the cinnamon and the nutmeg that come with Luxardo, so I prefer the Filthies, but any black cherry will work just fine. And then you add ice. and we're gonna stir. And you don't want to shake an old fashioned because it will dilute it too much.
Okay.
You just want to stir a few moments just to cool down the bourbon.
So what's the difference? Okay, so the difference in shaking and stirring is that you're melting more of the ice in there as well.
Correct. In a shaken drink, you're looking for really cold, and especially with like martinis and such, you're
Right.
going to get ice crystals in the drink, which is what those people that drink those sorts of cocktails are looking for.
Okay.
With this, you're just wanting to bring everything down to a cold temperature.
Okay, great. Looks pretty good to me.
And then you want to use ice. Of course, I prefer the larger cubes. It will melt a lot slower in the drink, and it dilutes it a lot less, so you can still enjoy it cold without it getting watered down while you're drinking it.
Fantastic.
And then just polish off with a little orange peel, rimmed around the glass, and you're good to go.
Man, that looks great. All right, guys, we've made the old fashioned, and now we're going to sit down and kind of have some conversation around what this drink is about and why it's so important in the bourbon world. And Robert, tell us some of the history around this drink.
So it's been around for over 100 years. It became popular as a cocktail before refrigeration was common in bars. They needed a way to make a drink that wasn't just straight liquor, but you also didn't have ways to keep fruit and mixers and things fresh. A lot of old cocktails, it's very muddy where they came from. So it's hard to tell. Somewhere in the mid to late 1800s. And it was known as a whiskey cocktail.
Okay.
And as more whiskey cocktails became prevalent, it was called an old fashioned. But originally, it was the only cocktail that you could get with whiskey.
So this is like the first
It
one.
was called the whiskey cocktail.
Oh, wow.
So that's why they call it old fashioned now?
Correct. And as more cocktails became prevalent, it became known as the old fashioned because it was a very old whiskey cocktail.
That's interesting.
It's very simple. It's very spirit forward. Just a little bit of extra flavor to enhance everything, but still very much bourbon.
So back when this was first made, who would be the type of people who would have drunk this cocktail? I mean, would it...
Most likely someone with money who wasn't just sitting at a saloon drinking, with a bottle of rock gut, sipping on it to drown their sorrows. It was someone at a party or most likely, especially you get in the late 1800s and early 1900s, get into Prohibition.
Right.
You're in a speakeasy somewhere behind a bookcase, talking about politics with friends and cigars and hoping that you don't get caught.
Gotcha. Well, great.
This is quite
All
good.
right. Well, cheers, guys.
Cheers
Yeah.
indeed.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Man, that's delicious.
That is delicious.
That clear ice makes a huge difference. That really
That's
does.
pretty good.
It really does.
Even if it's
Good looking drink, good
even if
tasting
it's a
drink.
mental thing, that clarity makes it seem so clean and fresh.
That's exactly
Yeah.
right.
Now,
I
while
agree
you're
with
on
that.
talking about the clarity and the visual, appeal there, I know the orange does add flavor, but that's,
sure.
that's what garnishes are for as well. It's for the visual presentation in addition to
right.
the taste.
Absolutely,
Is that right?
Absolutely. During the summertime, I have a local farmer that grows edible flowers for me
Oh,
to garnish cocktails.
That's
with.
cool.
Just as a nice visual presentation that won't, with flowers you can't use anything with pesticides.
Yeah.
But they're edible
frowned
flowers.
upon.
Yeah,
Sure.
it's frowned
Yeah.
upon. But she grows edible flowers just for presentation on cocktails for me. So yeah, it's very important. The eyes are it's what you use first when you see something you're going to consume. So you want it to look pretty if you're going to taste it.
And that's great.
really
Guys,
is good.
if you're ever in the area, in Landrum, South Carolina, or close by, make sure you stop in and try Robert's Old Fashioned. This thing's very delicious.
Wow. It really is good.
I said I wasn't going to finish it. I think I've rethought that.
This is hard to put down.
That's
This
good.
is hard to put down.
That's better than my old fashioned.
Man, that's better than.
Oh.
I have had several.
I have
occasions, but
found old fashions are better when someone else makes it.
Is that
Oh, yeah.
that's the case though, isn't it?
Let it roll. This
Is that the reason when I go to I go to a sushi place and I get that big bottle of Asahi beer and it's perfect. But when I get the same bottle I'm taking home, it's
It's environment and having someone else. I
Sheesh.
never, ever, ever make old fashions for myself.
Well, you did
I
today.
only order them when I go somewhere else.
I'm telling you what, this is
Because it's
quite
always
good.
better when someone else makes it.
But is it hard if they don't do the clear ice? Does it mess with you if they don't do the clear ice?
No, I mean most places aren't going to do that.
Oh, we know. It's a lot of work.
They'll use the mold, or
Look at that. You
When
see
I was
what's
recently
going on.
in Europe, there was a really really high end cocktail bar, and they were getting like $25 a piece for cocktails.
Wow.
There are places that make the clear ice and deliver it to them already in the cube, ready to go.
Oh, there's like a service for that? Mm-hmm. Wow.
And they're like $1.50 a piece.
Dang.
But when you're getting $25 a cocktail,
This is
you
a
can
drop in
afford
the bucket.
that. Yeah.
Literally a drop in the
Yeah.
bucket.
This is really good.
All right.
Super impressed.
So,
You know-
so this is my first one of these. I mean, I've never had one before. I mean, it takes a little getting used to with the bitter aspect of it, the bitter side of it. But once you kind of have a couple sips of this, I mean, it really grows.
it really does.
Yeah, it
The bitters almost keep you awake a little bit.
Yeah,
It creates some effervescence even though there's no carbonation.
yeah.
And this drink is bigger because of the other ingredients, so you can enjoy it for a little longer.
Right.
But it's still very much bourbon forward.
Oh, you mean I'm not supposed to put that much bourbon in my glass?
You certainly can if you want to.